It is June 26th. Joining me today is a new company, Prismo Metals. To speak to Prismo is Steve Robertson, the president, and Alain Lambert, who is the CEO of Prismo. Ticker is PRIZ.CN. Gentlemen, I'm pleased to have you on here for the first time. I hope you're doing well. How are you guys today?
Really good, Matt. Thanks.
I'm great. Thanks for having us, Matt.
Let's just jump right into it, right? So, I mean, I think the classic way that you always start these conversations, elevator pitch style. Alain, do you just want to lay out the opportunity that Prismo is presenting to people here today?
Yes. So Prismo has 3 different exploration projects. The one that we want to focus on today is the Hot Breccia copper project, which is right in the heart of the very famous copper belt in Arizona. And we believe that it's, or I should say, I believe that it's going to be one of the most exciting, large copper drilling campaign that's going to go on in the junior market in Canada this year. And Steve, who's our president and has a long history of dealing with these types of projects, will tell us more about what it is. And we have other 2 projects, one that's on the screen, I believe. So in Sonora State, gold play called Los Pavitos that has tremendous potential. And in the Panuco district, we have a silver project called Palos Verdes. And we're surrounded by Vizsla Silver, which would be well known to your viewers, Matt. And they own 9.6%. So we've got a variety of targets, but the one that got everyone excited, including myself, is this copper project called Hot Breccia.
Well, we will get into that conversation around sort of distinguishing between projects, when you're a small company and having to focus resources, so to speak. But yeah, and I will say that Palos Verdes, some of those drill results are pretty eye-popping when we get there. But yeah, let's start. We're at the table chatting because of Hot Breccia, right? So I think it makes sense for us to start there. And maybe Steve, I'll kick this one back to you, just knowing that you have a bit more of a longer historical connection to that land. Can you just discuss maybe your own history with Hot Breccia or Hot BX?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it all starts with the fact that I love big copper. Big copper plays are very attractive to me because I think that during the exploration and discovery phase, there's so much more value to be created when you're drilling in a big copper deposit. And, we're certainly in the right neighborhood for that. The project was originally generated by a former employee of Kennecott, and when I was with Infinitum Copper, we were able to option the property from him, and so it was optioned to Prismo Metals. And I do love the project, and so I'm quite happy to be working day to day with Prismo at this point and being able to push it forward, because I think that, as Alain said, it's going to be one of the highly notable drill programs of 2024.
Yeah, well, I think that you gentlemen yourself have expressed it. I mean, it's the classic, why are you in the junior sector? It's the opportunity for elevated returns, right? High risk, high reward is why people are here, right? We want to beat or try to beat the market, right? And so maybe, Alain, similar sort of question to you. So Steve and Hot Breccia sort of have come on to Prismo in the last few months or years. So you were a co-founder. Prismo's been around for a few years. Do you just want to maybe give us a little bit of introduction into who you are, and then maybe focus on your history with Prismo itself?
Yeah, great. I'd be glad to. So I started my career as an attorney in Montreal, and so my background is in law and finance. But I love the stock market so much that in 1987, I went into capital markets advisory, and that's what I've been doing since 87. And I also had while I'm a Montrealer, and who now lives in Vancouver, I had the pleasure between 2015 and 19 to live in Tucson, Arizona. Dr. Peter McGaw lives in Tucson, so I met him. We became friends and business associates. I met Craig Gibson, doctor in geology, as well at about the same time. And I was approached by Craig, who said, well, I've got this property called Palos Verdes, great target, Panuco District, silver. Would you like to join up with me and we'll put together a junior exploration company? And I said yes. And I said, but we were both friends of Peter. Let's approach him. Maybe he has a project he'd like to put in there. And that was Los Pavitos, the orogenic gold prospect that at the time we put it into Prismo was sort of a theory, an idea, big picture thinking about what could be there. And we took it from an idea to the drilling stage, and we've liked everything that we've seen. And the Panuco district, Palos Verdes, we were fortunate to team up with Vizsla Silver. They're shareholders of our company. And it was in January 2023 that we optioned Hot Breccia, and that's where I met Steve. My two partners knew Steve, had worked with him in the past, and Steve was an advisor to Hot Breccia project right from the start, and so we got to know each other better over the course of a year and almost a year and a half, and we're pretty thrilled that we were able to convince him in May to join the management team, and he's become the president of our company. And him and I spent a lot of time together working, because obviously as a junior company, you have to market yourself, you have to raise money. And I think that Steve and I make a good team. It's a good balance between his long history of successfully exploring for copper and mine that relates more directly to public company affairs and raising money.
Well, I might just use that opportunity to jump back up here. I'll show the capital structure, right? This is one of those small but critical details, right? It's not blown out. You've been around for 4 years. You've collected a trio of projects and still pro forma fully diluted south of 60 million shares. No rollbacks on that. Only moderate, light, short-term debt. Is that no? That was just canceled, correct?
Yeah, we did. I mean, you would have some payables and stuff, and we're I can tell you. I mean, in the last round, we even have the second to last option payment on Palos Verdes, and which was $50,000 US, and the claim owner didn't want our cash; he wanted our stock because he's not only excited about the upcoming drilling at Palos Verdes, but he's also heard about Hot Breccia, and he's a geologist himself, so he's got himself excited. But yes, you're absolutely right, Matt. So we're kind of old school guys. There's been no rollback. We started the company. We put in our own money. We've raised almost $10 million, and we still own, as a group, 27.5%. Vizsla owns 9.6%. And it's due in part, Matt, that, and I don't know if you have a slide on that, but or if you wanted to discuss this, but we're not what some people would refer to as a lifestyle company. We eat what we kill, in the sense that nobody's got an employment agreement with the company. Steve doesn't have an employment agreement. I don't have one. Craig doesn't have one. The CFO doesn't have one. So I think your viewers will be quite aware of the typical setup for exploration companies, which is you get a CEO at $350,000 a year and VPX at $250, and on and on and on. And before you can put any money in the ground, you got to raise $1 million, right? So it's what I think Rick Rule calls the transfer of wealth, right, from the investors to the people who run these little companies. It doesn't mean that we don't make money. It doesn't mean that Steve can't make a good living running this company. It just means that when he, just like Craig, does geological work, like he was on property for, 7 days earlier in the month, obviously he's getting paid for that. But nobody's getting paid just to think about Prismo. We got to work, and then we get paid.
Yeah, as you say, low overhead, dollars go in the ground. You're right. That is what people want to hear about these sort of stories, right? I might ask you just to maybe put a pin in this conversation a bit, but so you had a couple of projects that look pretty decent, right? That Vizsla Silver deal looks really. I mean, there's a lot of fire smoke that could lead to fire there, if you know what I mean. I guess maybe. And this might be kind of a two-part question where I'll ask each of you from your individual perspectives, but what's the coming together story? How is it that Prismo with two decently I mean, that Palos, as I say, Palos Verdes already catches my eye to begin with quite a bit. How did you ultimately decide to shift your attention to this Hot Breccia project?
Tell me, you go first, Steve.
It's up to you.
Thank you. So we optioned the property. As I said, in January 2023, we did some initial work. We did some geophysics, and then we early this year we kind of compiled everything. We looked at what was there, and we were encouraged by all of the surface work that was done, all the exploration, and the ZTEM survey that we did, and then we because we're always out there marketing and talking to investors on a regular basis. We kind of noticed and also follow what our peers are doing. And we saw that, there was considerable amount of interest for drilling a copper prospect that has the right sort of risk reward dynamics. So it's not so much that we change focus. I would say that there are two different types of exploration and there are two different types of budgets. And the cost to drill Palos Verdes in Mexico is much, much lower than to drill Hot Breccia in Arizona. So instead of using, what's our priority, we like to talk in terms of where we allocate exploration dollars. And it just is a derivative of what makes sense in terms of drilling for Hot Breccia that, we're going to spend at least $3 million, $4 million, $5 million on it this year. And so, it's a much bigger budget to drill 5,000 meters. We think we're going to drill 3,000 meters in two phases at Palos Verdes, and that's at a much different cost point. So we in terms of excitement and priority, we love these two projects equally for different reasons, and people are aware, it's part of our disclosure documents that Vizsla has a right of first refusal on our project, and given the size of our concession in Mexico, I think it makes sense to think that if we continue to have success, this property is going to end up being owned by Vizsla, which was everybody's intent at the start. So make a big discovery that moves the needle for Vizsla, and then the benefit to us is that would be, if you will, a non-dilutive financing way to move Prismo forward. So with that said, I think it'd be interesting to hear from you, Steve, from a geological standpoint, right? But I mean, what do you think?
I'll put the technical spin on it. I mean, of course, you understand the marketing part of things very well, Alain, but I take a look at the three projects from a technical perspective, and I think even though Hot Breccia is going to get the bulk of the funding for 2024, all three projects are actually getting what they need. The Las Pavidos project, the next logical step for us is to go out and do some mapping, prospecting, some ground geophysics, and so on. That's going to be a lower capital requirement, but it will get what it's needing this year. And then at Palos Verdes, the next logical step is to go and do that drill program, which is taking a deeper cut on the vein and trying to define the value a little bit lower down. It's again a lower cost capital than Hot Breccia, but it's going to get what it needs in 2024. But of course, the big nut for us from a financial perspective is going to be Hot Breccia, and this is a project that it's been a long time in getting to the point where we're able to get out there with the drill, but the time is right for us to go out and do a deep drill program at Hot Breccia, and I think that that's going to probably be the bulk of our news flow over the next 6 to 12 months.
Well, I think
so. Steve summarized in a few words what took me a long time, which is I love it. I'm going to steal it, Steve. So yeah, each project is going to get what is required at this stage for them. That's brilliant.
There you go. There's that teamwork you were talking about, right? Excellent. Why don't we take that though and segue though into Hot Breccia as a conversation here? Right? You can see I just have a little bit of an intro up here. Obviously, right? Zip code, right? Smelters in the neighborhood, lots and lots of active or former mines, copper mines in the area. Notably, right? You're kind of right next door to the old Christmas mine that closed. I think its pit closed in 1982, give or take a year. And so it's a classic, and Steve, I'll let you correct me, as required. But from my perspective, it's a classic modern exploration story where there looks to be a very large potential prize. It's just deeper than previous generations were willing to drill to get to. And maybe so, can you just run through, Steve? And of course, like I say, correct me if I got a detail wrong there. But maybe just give us. There was 8 or 10 historical holes, maybe place them, and I think I have an image here to help us with the conversation. But how has it helped you? How has the historical exploration helped you understand what's going on and what you're trying to accomplish and where you might want to drill yourself? Let's see if we can dig it out here.
Yeah. Well, look, in the exploration business, we're always standing on the shoulders of the guys that went before us. And it's no different here with Hot Breccia. I mean, the story really started in 1970, when Larry Barrett went out and did his master's thesis by doing a bunch of superficial mapping out on what is the current day Hot Breccia property. And he was able to identify these beautiful breccias that were, Mother Nature's sampling program, where there was a bunch of rocks that have been broken up at depth and thrust up to the surface and frozen in place. And, Larry mapped those. He noted that a lot of the fragments that were in those breccias were highly altered and highly mineralized. So when he was done doing his master's, he went to work for Kennecott. Kennecott was easily convinced that there's probably something big percolating at depth there. And, over the next decade, they drilled half a dozen drill holes deep. Back in the 70s, 3,000 plus foot long drill holes were not for the faint of heart. And so they took on the challenge of doing these 6 deep drill holes, and Phelps Dodge was also in the area, so just outside of our current property, drilled a couple of deep holes as well. And sure enough, they drilled down through the overlying volcanics and got into the Paleozoic carbonates down below, which are our target rocks, the same ones that host all that great mineralization over the Christmas mine next door. Yeah, on the section you've got up there, you can see in the left-hand side this is a cross section, so you can see the blue stratigraphy at the top. On the left-hand side is what hosted the ore over at the Christmas mine, where there was about 25 million tons of 1.5% copper mined over several decades. And we've got those same rocks over on our property on the right-hand side of that slide, but it's masked by this overlying volcanic unit. So the green volcanic is sitting on top like a big blocker, blotting out all the action that we would love to be able to see down below. So we piece together these little pieces of evidence that we need to say, yeah, this is going to be a worthwhile target going after. Well, what has really changed the dialogue here is the fact that resolution was found in the 1990s, early 2000s. I mean, resolution had a very similar situation. You could use this cross section to describe the situation there. Next door to them was a small, high-grade mine, Magma it was called, and over several decades it produced about 20 million tons of 5% copper. And then they went to it shut down in the 90s. And when they went to explore for the roots to the system, it took them a few years, but eventually they tapped into 1.6 billion tons of 1.6% copper. I mean, an absolute monster, and it's not drilled off yet. It could be much larger than that. So it's really a spectacular story. I think one of the greatest exploration discovery stories in our business. And it's absolutely startling to me. Similar, our geology and our geologic setting is to resolution, the big difference being that our perspective horizon is much shallower than that. So it's a really compelling story to go after, and it's just our luck, I guess, that the timing didn't work out for the previous generation of explorers. They were going along, everything was turning out the way they were hoping, but the Christmas mine shut down in the 80s. In 1982, as you pointed out, the copper price got weak and so on, and the project just got deprioritized and forgotten about, and eventually it was dropped. And so it's our opportunity now to go in with a fresh set of eyes and a new exploration toolbox 50 years later and be able to pick up where they left off, and I think that we're loving all of the factors that stack the odds in our favor of having a successful drill program.
Hmm. Well, I think that's part of what draws me to this story is that it's not just blind drilling. You're not just kind of throwing darts and hoping for the best, but there's a very, very reasonable, eminently reasonable explanation and belief about why what's down there is down there. Not to mention the fact that, yeah, historical drilling did hit some decent intercepts, 20 meters measured in feet, but 20 meters of 1.5% copper and 4 or 5% zinc, give or take. I'm going from memory here. I apologize. Hope that's close enough. But so, I mean, there's something down there. It's just a matter of proving scale here, right? So I guess maybe, again, as a segue, do you want to just discuss, my understanding is, 5 holes, give or take 1,000 meters each. That's your plan for Hot Breccia this year. What are you hoping, maybe if you can even, maybe this is going too far, but, could you even identify where within your own map you'd be hoping to drill, or what you're hoping, or more generally, what you're hoping to accomplish with those holes?
Well, yeah, I can't point out exactly where they're at because we haven't finalized the drill plan yet. One of the things that we're doing is, you had mentioned earlier that we did a ZTEM survey in 2023, and that's one of those tools that we have available to us now that the guys back in the 1970s didn't have available to them. And of course, ZTEM is a great tool to be able to identify deep conductors. And so there it is right there, the big pink blob in the foreground on the right-hand slide, or the right-hand image, is a conductor right down where the limestone should be. And of course, limestones are non-conductive rocks. So it begs the question, why would a limestone be conductive? And one good explanation is it's highly mineralized with copper, it'll become a good conductor. And so it makes a great drilling target to go after. And currently we're working with a group out of California that has, the company is led by a geologist and a geophysicist, so they understand our business very well, but they've got a lot of computer savvy people working there as well. And they've actually got the ability to use AI to optimize the geophysical response that we've received in that survey. And so they're giving us a refined interpretation of the exact location of that anomaly, and it's going to just help optimize our drill program. So that a lot of our drilling is going to be focused on that ZTEM program, but also on the information that we've been able to extract from those old drill holes. Unfortunately, we don't have all the assays from those old drill holes. So we're going a little bit blind on that, but we do have all the geological descriptions so we can understand where the most intense alteration was and that sort of thing. And we're also relying on the superficial mapping because, it's really interesting to see that when you're out on the perimeter of the property, you have somewhat boring geology, and then when you get into the heart of the property where all the breccias are, the geology gets very complex, and there's a lot of faulting, there's dikes, there's all these breccias going on, and so on and so forth. And so it's a sort of, oh, well, maybe there's a heat source down below there that's causing all this chaos. And so that's also going to be helping us in terms of a guide of where we put our drilling. And we've got a little bit of time, but not much time to be able to figure all this out. And so we'll have our drill program finalized here in probably the next month or so.
Well, you know what? I do want to come back and just touch on ZTEM and the drill campaign, imminent drill campaign once more, but maybe I'll give you a breather and I'll throw onto Alain here and just explore tech, right? Steve referenced you've got AI target generation in hand. Do you want to just maybe, Alain, give us a rundown on how you found them and what attracted you to them versus maybe other AI companies that you could have used, and why you think this will help with the process?
Yes, I was actually meeting with Lauren McGaw, Peter's daughter, one day, and she recommended them. So Rena Silver is using them at their Gigi property just outside Chihuahua in Mexico, and then talked about it with Steve, talked about it with Craig, and then we had a call with Peter. He's using them, and as an optimization tool, it's just one more tool in the toolbox, right? And so it to me, and as a layman, it does two things. One, it takes the bias out of where you're going to go drill, because it's not a human, and then it is able to look at a million different possibilities that the human mind can't compete, right? So as a team of very talented geos, and this is not meant to replace the geos at all, but you look at your data and you come up with your target. So that is meant to optimize, if you will, all of the results that we already have from the ZTEM, and make sure that maybe change the orientation of a drill hole a little bit this way and that way. And I've met these people; they've been on site, as Steve said, 2 PhDs. They live and breathe that stuff, and most of the fee associated with this exercise is actually computing, access to large scale computing, that we don't have on our computers at home, right? So we're thrilled to have them. So maybe over to you, Steve. I mean, you've been doing this your entire life, and you've seen ZTEM surveys before. And what do you expect from what they're currently doing for us?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that we've got the project, or the company is led by 2 PhD scientists. And that's the real key to me, is that these guys, it's not just putting it into the computer and letting the computer try and churn out a result. I mean, these guys understand the process and what it is that they're trying to achieve, and they understand how to model the potential deposit and that sort of thing. That's all really, I think, important to be able to come out with a quality result, and looking very, very forward to being able to see what their result is. But I'm also very encouraged by the fact that they've been very interactive with us. They actually came out to the site to take a look at the rocks and understand the geologic setting, and tour a couple of the neighboring deposits so they could understand how those deposits were formed. And so, I'm very impressed by the level of diligence that they've had, and I'm highly confident that they're going to come up with a quality result.
And I might add, Matt, that they're taking their compensation 100% in stock, and because obviously they look at what we're looking at, and they're going, this could be life changing, and it's staged payments and shares, if you will, as they do the work, and our cash obligations are the computing time, which is not inexpensive, but it won't break the bank neither.
Always a nice touch when the contractors are happy to be paid in shares, and I do.
Like the optioner at Palos Verdes, right? So that gives us 2 examples of that.
There you go. No, I part of me wants to get lost in the weeds here, talking about the geology and AI and the hype versus reality and pros and cons. But I'll probably just bypass that one here. We'll jump back to you though, Steve. Maybe just to follow, like I said, the follow-up question on the ZTEM and the ZTEM. Had it been tagged, now what you have now interpreted to be a conductive body, an anomaly, had it been tagged by historical drilling, do you know?
Yeah, the historical drilling is sort of in the area, off the mark. If you had the result that we've got, you wouldn't have done the historic drilling the way that it was done. It would have shifted position a little bit. So, I think that this is going to really help us zero in on the hot part of the system, which of course is the part where the high-grade copper would reside.
And then a follow-up, this is one that you had corrected me on prior to us going live here, or being recorded rather. Just on my understanding is that there is part of your plan holds the potential for a twinned hole. Obviously, there are lots of positive reasons. It can be just network related, or just trying to understand, a quick step out. But also sometimes people raise their eyes and say that's just, it's kind of a marketing gimmick. I had come to that maybe I had inferred incorrectly. I will say clearly that I thought maybe it was about those missing data points and filling in. But do you just want to explain why the twinning holes is part of your strategy here?
Yeah, well, the information that we have from the prior generation of drilling is the logs, the geologic descriptions, and that's really impressive. And we want to get down into that highly altered part of the system. It's also highly mineralized, but we don't have the assays from that drilling. We've been able to pull some historic intercepts out of old reports and memos and that sort of thing, but we don't actually have the assays that go along with the drill logs. And the core, we can't go back and re-examine it because it was taken to the dump a couple of decades ago. And so, I know it's like throwing the books out of the library. Every geologist hates it when this happens, but it does happen from time to time. And so I think it's really important for us to go back into what we know is a hot part of the system and drill a hole and get our own eyes tuned into the rocks, be able to do our own analysis on and log it our way, and it gets our team into the game. And then we step out from there and see if we can get, some vectors in terms of where's the heart of the system and which way do we go to get into the better copper.
Yeah, and validity, right?
And Matt, if I may, Matt, just on that, just for a second, my perspective from a non-technical standpoint, and I get the question all the time, what do you do, Alain, in terms of participating in exploration and all this? And I always say that I don't really have to, because I've got 3 great partners, and as a first job for a guy like me is I surround myself with the right people, which is what I did. So so I don't dabble in geology. And the other point I like to make, which is I think a key one for your viewers, and I like making that point, which is, as a junior exploration company, you need to have your technical people come in with an exploration plan and let them do what is best for the play over the long term, and not do what some people do, is let's try to get one good hole here or that, because the market has been conditioned to read assay results, right? So there are a lot of very, very smart retail investors who supposedly understand, intercepts, and if that's good for the stock. But while they might be good at determining if it's good for the stock, it means nothing in terms of development of the play. And the last point I'll make on that is that when you issue drill results or any types of exploration update, there truly are 3 audiences. One is the retail investors, right? And so that's fine. And they might be disappointed sometimes because they misunderstand or do not understand what the company's up to. But there are 2 other audiences. And that's the more, so if you will, sophisticated institutional type investor that truly understand what a news release means, and so on and so forth. And then there are the majors, right? So that's the third audience. You need to conduct your exploration in a way that when the majors look at you, because hopefully that's what a major is going to do with respect to Hot Breccia, is go, okay, these are interesting results. You want to have the credibility and have done the work in a way that they'll understand what you're doing and come across as, people who are extremely credible in their exploration.
Well, I think that's a point well made, right? That I think that sometimes that is a classic flaw of retail, is that they miss the forest for the trees, or sometimes too impatient, right? And good science takes time, right? And drilling something properly, sometimes it means that it's not designed to try to hit that kind of home run of an intercept to stick in your headline, right? So, a point well made. Maybe, and again, I think this is actually a decent segue here again. And I'll let you guys maybe both answer this in kind, and not to be a shot across your bow, but it's a porphyry project. You're obviously not going to be the ones that are pulling rock out of the ground. These things are huge. That's why people love them. I mean, just as, billions upon billions of dollars of value in the ground, right, to be had. Is it too big, right? I mean, you're a little $10 million market cap with big ideas, and this is why people are in the sector, right? That we're here for these opportunities. Is there such thing as too big? Is this too big for you guys to do to accomplish effectively?
Well, I'll say this. I'll let Steve go first, because he has found something big and took it all the way to production. So lessons learned there, I'm sure. Over to you, Steve.
Okay, thanks, Alain. I love big copper plays, as I said earlier, and this is certainly one of them. And it's not our intention to be 20 years from now be a producer and be looking at revenues for the next quarter. It's our intention to create value in the exploration and discovery phase, and that's really what geologists love, and it's what the market loves. And so that's what we're trying to do, is create a lot of value through the early discovery part of the exploration phase. I'll end my answer there.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
And I like to point out that let's pick a recent example of Hercules Silver, which I just read is going to change its name to Hercules Metals. So they were successful, drilled something, and they very rapidly, after positive results, were able to attract Barrick. I think they put in 25 million, about 14% of the company. And so I think that's a good example of a junior company being able to attract a major. And in our case, being and I don't know if we have the map with the logos of all the companies, Matt, but so we have we've got all the there you go. See, so that picture speaks for itself, right? And the Christmas mine, which is still owned by Freeport. I think the claims are contiguous, and I think we're probably 4K from our drilling sites to the mine itself. So and we go to PDAC and we go to VRIC, and the people come by and they say, hi, when you're going to drill that thing. So it doesn't mean that they're going to invest, but I can assure you that they all know we were about to drill, and I assume they'll be watching.
And I guess this is a point that I didn't make clearly enough, that, this is not like you're flying in north of Yellowknife to and helicoptering a rig in, right? No, this is you're driving on the highway from Tucson, right? So yes, it's deep and expensive because, of course, deep holes are expensive holes, but in terms of jurisdiction, right, you can't get much better than location here, right? Yeah, surrounded by giants, right off a highway, you're 2-hour drive, whatever it is, from the international airport, and you're gone, right? So no, good, yeah, good, excellent location. Maybe we will, just like on this note. Drilling deep, right? It's, like I say, classic kind of modern exploration, but also comes at a price tag, right? Things kind of get exponentially more expensive the deeper you get. These are not 100-meter holes in Fresnillo or whatever, right? But can I tell you, what are you guys budgeting per hole right now for the 5-hole 5,000-meter campaign, roughly?
I think that this is probably a really good time to be doing deep drilling in Arizona. The business has slowed down a lot on the junior side. Of course, the majors keep the diamond drillers going all the time, but the junior side of the market has softened quite a bit. And so we've got a lot of diamond drillers that have got gear parked in the yard right now and are really hungry for some work. And so I think it's going to be very competitive. We've already initiated discussions with probably half a dozen contractors that we know are capable of doing the job, and they all seem to be very interested in it. I think that we're right now expecting that it's going to be about $500,000 US per drill hole for a 1,000-meter hole, and I think that's on the conservative side. I think we'll hopefully be able to do it for less than that, but that's a good I think thumb suck for us to start off with.
Sure. And you kind of anticipated a question I was going to follow up with on, is just, these are obviously high impact drills to the upside and the downside, and having a failed hole or a lost hole obviously would not be good news, to put it lightly. Are you confident in terms of the skill set, experience, technical expertise available there to find the rig and the team, the crew that will do this successfully?
Can I just, before I let you go, Steve? So I just want to, and because I find these things fascinating, right? So failed hole. I don't know if Steve would use or anybody on the team would use that as a description. Maybe in the oil and gas, if there's no oil or no gas. But what I like to look at is, it's a question of expectations, right? And I think it's important, Steve, in terms of setting the right expectations. What's the first hole going to do? Why are you doing it? What is it meant to accomplish? And then after that, let's say, what would be a disappointing result for you? I've just rephrased your question, Matt. Sorry, I can't help myself.
Yeah, no. Well, Alain, I would agree 100% with what you just said. It's hard to actually define what would be a failed hole. Every drill hole that you drill is going to provide you with information from the unknown, and that's the whole point of our game is continually getting pieces to the puzzle and putting them in place. And every drill hole does that. Some of them are strongly mineralized, some of them aren't, but that doesn't mean it's a failed hole, because it gives, if you drill something that's filled, you see all sorts of epidote alteration. Well, that tells you, hey, maybe I'm in this hydrothermal system, but I'm a little too far out, and I better be moving in one direction or another to be able to get closer to the heart of the system. Now, which direction is that? Well, then you have to have another drill hole that maybe gives you a little bit more information, and you keep on putting the pieces of the puzzle together, and eventually you can understand what the picture is.
Yeah, I don't mind that correction. No, I think that's a good qualifier. Thank you. Maybe this is a decent follow up too. Then, I mean, I'm assuming that these holes will take 3 or 4 weeks to drill because they are at depth and will be, technically challenging as you get deeper and deeper. Which was more the thrust of that conversation. Neither here nor there. But is this a position where maybe you'll be able to be kind of reactive to what's you're seeing from the lab? Is there kind of an opportunity for a cycle of lab data and assay data to help you decide future drill locations, or are you pretty confident with where you want to go already?
Well, I think that relying on the assay lab is probably something that might be more applicable to gold projects, but copper mineralization, we can see we're going to have an XRF out on site, and so we're going to have a pretty good idea of what it is that we're hitting as we go along, and we're always reactive. The drill program is never set in stone. It's continually flexible and subject to alteration as we're going along.
No, excellent. So maybe let's just 5,000 meters at Hot Breccia, but it is ambitious. So as I referenced, right, that you do have plans for your, let me see, Palos Verdes. Here we go. Just a kind of a brief slide here, where you're also planning 3,000 or 3,600 meters over there over the course of 10 holes. Maybe you just want to describe, I mean, more briefly here because we're nearing the end of our time. But what are your plans for 2024 or the next drill campaign here at Palos Verdes?
Want to go, Steve, or you want me to go?
Oh, yeah, no, I can answer. Absolutely. So the Palos Verdes is really a great project. We've hit a vein there, that the Palos Verdes vein, that is, fits right in with the Panuco district. It's a bonanza grade mineralization dominated by silver, but also has substantial gold in it. And, we've been able to put several holes into that in the shallower areas, and just to get a better valuation of what is there, we need to just step back and take a deeper cut at it. And so that's the next obvious step. And, it's pretty straightforward. The vein's a vein. We do have a fault that's coming through the middle of the system, and we don't know if there's an offset at depth. And so it'll be interesting and important to answer that question. So, there are multiple answers that we're looking for from the next drill program, but it's really good that we've got the technical committee that we've got that has the expertise of both Dr. Gibson and Dr. McGaw from our side, and also Dr. Valador. I can't be on that committee because I'm not a PhD, but we've got a lot of very smart guys that are trying to figure out.
I think it has more to do with your lack of Spanish speaking ability, but okay.
Well, there's that too. But it's great that we've got a great cooperative relationship with our neighbors in this case, and and we can use their expertise to help us design our next stage of drilling there, and it certainly, again, reduces risk for our next drill program.
Well,
and Matt, if I may, do you have the map that shows the property itself?
I don't know. I don't. Sorry, Alain. I can.
Okay. All right. So, but we can stay there. Yeah. No, it's all right. Yeah. So our concession is rather narrow. It does have 750 meters strike length, and we're surrounded by Vizsla on three sides. And the origin of the deal with Vizsla was in 2022 when I was talking with the technical guys at Prismo, and we were drilling, and it's like, oh, well, we can't drill here because we can't step off and we can't go deeper than this and that. And I asked everybody, I said, well, is there, other than that legal line, that boundary of the concession on the map, is there a reason why we're drilling where we're drilling? And everybody told me that was an impediment to actual real exploration. And I went, well, okay, well, better talk to Mike Connor, and sat down with him and sat down with Jesus Velador, his VPX. everybody agreed. Yeah, I mean, this project should be drilled without regard to the boundaries, and that's exactly what we're doing next. We're forgetting that there's a boundary that says Prismo on one side and says Vizsla on the other, and we're actually drilling from Vizsla's property, stepping out of further away from Palos Verdes concession in order to drill deeper down. And there are some indications that the vein actually, reappears on the east on their property, and might be that the system dips down towards the east underneath their property. So if you compute all of that, then you do have to remove that legal boundary and do what's right with the play. And Vizsla has been tremendous. Mike and his team have been tremendous partners, and hopefully we get some further good results like the one they got today. Amazing hole by Vizsla this morning, incredible. So hopefully we move it forward, and it goes to feed their plant one day.
This is a question, and you can, please, again, correct me where I have myself mistaken here, but my 3,000 meters Palos Verdes, 5,000 meters Hot Breccia, is the idea here that perhaps you would drill out Palos Verdes first, and then maybe, off the success of that, raise more cash for Hot Breccia? Or can you just discuss your kind of the strategy for the next 6 months in terms of where your focus will be?
Yeah, so we're about to mobilize on Palos Verdes. So and we're using the same driller that we use in the past. So in terms of mobilizing and starting to drill, it will happen before Hot Breccia. One thing that we didn't talk about, which maybe we should raise here, is the drilling permit, Matt, and it impacts both timing and financing plans as follows. So number one, we went through the permitting process with BLM, and the last administrative thing that needs to take place is in our control, in the sense that we need to post a bond, and Steve's been working diligently in getting that done. And then once that gets done, then we can get going at Hot Breccia. The other thing that the permit means, the importance of the permit, not just to drill, but Steve and I have been on the road a lot, and we've met a lot of sophisticated, large-scale investors, and the answer that we got from most of them is, we'd rather finance once you have the permit, because there's this perception, especially in Arizona, that the permitting process can take a very long time, and the expectation of a junior company might be too optimistic. So I think it makes sense. Hopefully Steve certainly has the latest. I don't, but in terms of the permitting, and then he's going to do his thing and sign up a driller, and so on and so forth. So the steps are a little displaced, and in terms of financing, hopefully we get some good news out of Panuco real quick, and hopefully that has an impact on our valuation.
No, thank you. The pruning is that's an oversight on my part. The question I did want to ask there, I know that in previous interviews and previous discussions, you've said the same thing, right? It's just an administrative thing, just a kind of a cashing of checks, so to speak, crossing T, dotting I. There's no room for further feedback. It's not like they're going to come back with another list of details. No, okay, good. It is just purely a rubber stamp waiting. All right, good. And so there it is, right? I mean, it's like you say, that potential risk, you get the BLM involved, and sometimes there can be a challenge there in terms of timeliness, but no, sounds very positive. No, gentlemen, I think honestly that this is kind of where I would probably sign off at this point. I mean, I think that from my own summary, I think that Hot Breccia is a kind of project. It's huge, potentially a massive project with good grade, that I think that alone would probably deserve people's attention. And then you throw on this ultra high grade gold silver project surrounded by Vizsla, of M&A being a high potential there in terms of takeout value too, right? But no, I'll let you guys with that my summary out of the way. Final word to you two gentlemen. Anything that I missed that you want to chat about quickly before we say goodbye?
I would just thank you, Matt, for having us. Steve and I like these discussions. As again I said earlier, we're old school kind of guys. We want to educate people so that when they become investors, shareholders, they know what they buy, and they stay in touch. And it's got to sell on its own merits, and so you give us that opportunity.
No, thank you.
And I'll add, I'm a new guy here. I just joined as president on May the 1st. And the three things that I think that you look for in the junior explorer sector is good property, good people, and good timing. And I think we've got all three of those with this company, Prismo. And, I'm very excited to be here. And I think this really could be a good timing for us.
Good, and I'll make sure from now on to stop using the phrase "failed holes," and we'll call it there. Okay, awesome. Alain, Steve, Prismo Metals, thanks a lot, guys, and I'll be tuning in and keeping a keen eye on your progress moving forward. Good luck. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.